environmental justice is front and center here. This is climate justice. This is recognizing that we have climate change impacting our Black, brown, indigenous, and poor communities first and worst. We know deforestation is a major driver. Matter of fact, the second largest driver of climate change. So we're saying we're sick of our communities being impacted. This is the justice that our environment is calling for. It's not just words, it is actions. It is making sure our complicity is being addressed. So it's procurement. So it's important for us to make sure that we get this passed. So this is justice. Justice isn't just a word, justice is an action. So we're trying to make sure we enact legislation that puts our words into actions. So with that being said, let's make sure we contact our elected officials. And again, we have a great panel today. Thank you everyone for joining us. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali. He is the Executive Vice President of the National Wildlife Federation. He is in action. If you look at his Twitter page, Environmental EJ in action, and that is exactly what he is. He is one of the examples of people who've made it and has not forgotten about the people who need that representation the most. We are very excited. You can read his bio, but I can tell him as a person I consider to be a friend, it is an honor to learn and to watch this gentleman go across the country educating people about environmental justice and our role and to make sure we repair these historic harms. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator for this panel, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali.
Thank you, Marcus. It's an honor and a blessing to both be with you and everyone who's joining us today to make real change happen. And that requires us getting engaged in the process and pushing for the actions that we know need to happen. You know, it's interesting, the work that we are doing in this particular space today actually aligns very nicely with the first principle of environmental justice, which says that environmental justice affirms the sacredness of Mother Earth, ecological unity and the interdependence of all species, and the right to be free from ecological destruction. So as we are moving forward on this particular critical piece of legislation, it honors the work that Indigenous brothers and sisters and other frontline communities have been doing for years for us to actually be able to achieve climate justice. I wanted to bring my grandfather into our conversation because as a young boy, he shared with me some very powerful words that I live by, and I know many of us do as well as we move forward. And that is about conscientious conversations and courageous actions. And the work that folks have been doing in this space speak to those principles that my grandfather had shared with me, and I know many other folks actually embrace around courageous actions of utilizing our pieces of legislation to make sure that real change happens, that we are honoring our Indigenous brothers and sisters, that we understand how supply chains move and that we can do better in this space. So this legislation has brought together an incredible and powerful coalition. And we know coalitions are important to make real change happen. And we stand together. Too many to list, but it should be noted, the diversity on this particular call from state, national, and international environmental groups with fantastic work by Friends of the Earth, Indigenous peoples from across the globe, human rights organizations, businesses, investors, and religious organizations. We are so proud to join with you today. The diversity of this coalition in support of this legislation, and to be direct, the lack of serious opposition and arguments against this legislation is all the evidence that we need that the legislation is on the right path. And we've heard some of the movements that are currently going on. This also honors the work of environmental justice and climate justice activists and stakeholders and supporters across our planet. And with that being said, I want to be brief because we have some amazing information that's going to be shared with you today that hopefully will motivate and innovate as we move forward.